I want to go in depth about the three-man band. Here is a group right here I've been watching in WWE for a good minute now. They're always jobbing to people, and I've heard so many of you say, when is Drew McIntyre, Heath Slater going to break away from 3MB? I don't really hear too many of you guys saying anything about Jinder Mahal. I think we all can be in agreement that Jinder Mahal, his days is probably numbered. He is probably on the future endeavored list. So let's talk about Heath Slater and Drew McIntyre. That needs to be the focus on the RCWR Show Spotlight. As I've been looking at these two guys, and I've been saying to myself, what type of a position can we get these guys in where they can break away from 3MB and go back on the singles career path, a successful one at that? You know, I was looking at Drew McIntyre, and I said to myself, wouldn't it be kind of interesting if we saw him in a backstage segment where he's talking with his other 3MB bandmates, Triple H and Stephanie McMahon. They walk past them. Stephanie says, "Boys, how's it going?" And they're like, "Oh, hey, Miss McMahon, I'm doing pretty good." And Triple H says to Steph, "You go on ahead, hon." Well, let me make sure I put the Triple H voice on. "You go ahead, hon. I got to talk to these guys for a bit." And, you know, he looks at them, and Triple H just has this smug, jackass look on his face, okay? And he just says to them, "Man, you guys, how is it that you all continue to have a job? I mean, week after week, I just don't get it." And that can just make 3MB be very quiet. And we can see Triple H look at Drew McIntyre and just say, "And you, to think, there was a time where you were being looked at as the chosen one. What happened?" And Triple H just walks away, and we can see Heath Slater and Jinder, they can basically be looking at Drew McIntyre, who's just looking on with a glaring look in his eyes, as he really is stunned by what Triple H had said to him. And Jinder Mahal, Heath Slater, they're trying to tell Drew, "Hey, forget about that, man. He's a nobody. You know, don't worry about him." But that's going to stick with Drew. And maybe on that same episode, we can see some type of a scenario play out where they're involved in a match, and it can be against none other than Los Matadors. Insult to injury. Go on ahead, put El Torito in there. You know how El Torito likes to do his bouncing around, ramming people in the butt, all that stuff post-match. Basically, I've got Heath Slater, Drew McIntyre losing to Los Matadors. And we can just see Drew McIntyre, he can just, at that point, once they lose and all that, he can just take off the leather pants, wipe away the little mascara or whatever that's around his eyes, all that crazy stuff. And we can see Heath Slater, Jinder Mahal ask him, "What's going on? What are you doing?" And we see Drew McIntyre, he says, "I've had enough of this. This is nothing but a joke. I'm better than this. I'm more deserving. I shouldn't be reduced to this." Is basically what he could be driving home. You keep it short, you keep it brief, but you basically let it be a cliffhanger in a way where you can kind of pick it back up the very next week. And basically that's how I see Drew McIntyre breaking away from 3MB to the point where, he can go right up to Triple H afterwards and say, "Your words had really got to me. I'm going to prove to you and I'm going to prove to everybody that I still am the chosen one." And that can just begin a reignited push for Drew McIntyre, I feel. I'm going to pause on that and let you guys marinate on that one. Now, Heath Slater, I can see Slater and Jinder Mahal, they could continue on as 3MB, even though now you kind of have to change the 3 and make it be 2MD, all right? We see them lose some matches, and basically Heath Slater, he could grow frustrated. And he could just say, bump this. I'm tired of losing all the time. Maybe it's time that we retire the band, basically. It wouldn't be in the same type of fashion as what Drew McIntyre did, but Heath Slater could basically be kind of at that point where he's kind of saying to himself, is this really the future of the band? Should we really continue to go on, basically? And we can see Heath Slater maybe break away from that. There was one interesting idea that a listener had pitched to us on the show a couple of months back, where he had suggested that maybe they could do some type of angle with Chris Jericho, since he's got the whole Fozzy band going on. But I think in this particular case, we're trying to make Slater make the exit 3MB. Honestly, I think what we should see happen is Heath Slater, Jinder Mahal, just see these two guys go on ahead and say, you know what, let's just part ways. This whole thing, it's not working. Now, what you can do for Heath Slater afterwards is you can have him actually go over as a top babyface. How can you do that? Well, I was thinking about it a little bit, and honestly, how's this one for size? How about a backstage segment? Heath Slater, he's still pushing his letter 3MB attire, but he's kind of branching off from that whole rock and roll persona a little bit. He's a little bit more serious now. We could see him in a position where he's in a backstage segment when he walks up on Alicia Fox, who's being harassed by Summer Rae and Fandango. Heath Slater jumps in there, tries to come to Alicia Fox's aid. That basically sets up a intergender match, if you will. And we could see the two of these, these guys pair up for a little bit, continue to feud with Fandango, Summer Rae, and sparks, basically, in a nutshell, will begin to fly between Alicia Fox, Heath Slater, and I can see a scenario play out where Fandango, at one point, he may try to do harm to her or whatever like that. Slater comes in for the rescue. Nobody really likes Fandango other than the dancing. But, even at that, his dancing is starting to get a little bit redundant, same stupid moves every time you see the guy come out, But I think in that type of a scenario, that would be a pretty smooth way to have Heath Slater branch out as a singles competitor. That's just my thoughts on that. I could be way off.